Here's what Terry Crews said in this era of protest and in the aftermath of the horrific George Floyd death. He tweeted, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality," he said, "I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill." Does that sound like something that is controversial? Certainly Don Lemon of CNN thought so last night. I wanted to play some of this interview with you between, again, this is a Don Lemon segment with Terry Crews on CNN.
As actor and activist Terry Crews facing backlash for tweeting, "We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better." Here's how he explained it. Are all white people bad? No. Are all black people good? No. Knowing this reality, I stand on my decision to unite with good people, no matter the race, creed, or ideology. Given the number of threats against this decision, I also decide to die on this hill. Terry Crews joins me now. Terry, man, you stepped in it. You say that you're willing. You say you're willing to die on this hill. You've taken a lot of heat for this. Explain what you were thinking and why it's so important that you die on this hill.
Well, again, I wanted to bring up the fact that, there are some very, very, militant type forces in Black Lives Matter. And what I was issuing was a warning. It's one of those things where I've been a part of different groups, I've been a part of different things, and you see how extremes can really can go far and can go wild. And then when you issue a warning, and when a warning is seen as detrimental to the movement, how can you ever have checks and balances? In the 60s and 70s, airplanes went down all the time. And the reason they found out why they did was because the pilots could never be questioned. And when you have the leaders of the Black Lives Movement who are now talking about, if we don't get our demands, we're going to burn it down. Other black people who are talking about working with other whites and other races, they're being viewed as sellouts or called Uncle Toms. You start to understand that you are now, being controlled. You're not being treated as loved. You're actually being controlled. Someone wants to control the narrative. And I viewed it as a very, very dangerous self-righteousness that was developing that really viewed themselves as better. It was almost a supremacist move.
Let me jump in,
where
Terry.
they viewed that their Black lives mattered a lot more than mine.
Okay, so let me jump in here. There's a lot that you said. You think if Black Lives Matter is, you said you think it's an extreme movement? Because it's now part of the...
No, this is the thing. It's a great mantra. It's a true mantra. Black lives do matter. But when you're talking about an organization, you're talking about the leaders. You're talking about the people who are responsible for putting these things together.
I got you. So let me,
different things.
Terry, you realize that even during the civil rights movement that Dr. King was seen as extreme. That movement was seen as extreme. To people who don't want to make change, movements are seen as extreme. You can paint them easily as an extreme when they are not.
This is very true. But also, when you're talking about MLK, you're talking about Nelson Mandela, and even Malcolm X, they all realized that you had to have a non-racial component to these kind of movements, or there will be resentment. There will be get back. There will be, one of these people will tend to, listen, I don't want to move from one oppressor to the next.
I really admire the guts that it must take for an actor like Terry Crews to go on with Don Lemon and say the things you just heard. He's been getting threats for that. I mean, it sounds to me, he sounds entirely, I'm a white guy. Those are two black guys having a conversation. One who is a far left, media voice, and a guy who I don't know anything about his politics, except he's decided that he wants to embrace all people. People have called him ignorant, and he's not backing down. He wrote on the 4th of July, If you're a child of God, you're my brother and sister. I have family of every race, creed, and ideology. We must ensure Black Lives Matter doesn't morph into Black Lives Better, says Terry Crews. And, you know, people like Don Lemon think that Terry Crews is missing the point. Isn't he just advocating for we have a we ought to have a colorblind society, but we don't? What a remarkable exchange last night.